Hello, hello. Can I have everyone seated, please? We're about to start. Good evening, everyone. I really want to thank each and every one of you for putting the time and effort to come and be with us today. Before I start, I just wanted to let you know the emergency door, there's the main entrance. From the kitchen, there's emergency door. Behind me, there's another emergency door. And you can see another door to your right there. Washrooms, when you walk out of the main door, to the left, to the right is the women's washroom. To the left is the men's washroom. We don't have this in here, buddy. God created us in the best shape and form. No modification needed, buddy. So, something I like to share with you. I got to hear people saying we need to say acknowledgement. And the only acknowledgement I could do, acknowledge you because you are here. Acknowledge the living people who contribute, build, sweat, and blood to protect this land, to build this society, to build this country. And that's why we are here. That's why we exist. And enough of us, every time we have a factual event or meeting, we need to bring the guilt, the shame, or the grievance, or the guilt of someone else. Our kids has nothing to do with whatever happened during history. Our younger generation has nothing to do with what happened during history. Even us, we have nothing to do with what happened during that history. You know what? I don't want to say something that could bother some people. But reality, we are living here today. We are sweating, working hard to build what we have, to protect what we have. And God bless each and every one of you who stand up for what's right. The only acknowledgement I could do to the living one, to one who fought hard, and they are still fighting for our freedom to be preserved on this land, to be built by our sweat and our effort, to plant the seed of love and success and thrive and prosper, to have a strong province and hoping to have a strong country. Before I start, there's a few guidelines I want to tell you. This event been organized by APP. But in this moment, at this time, we won't be talking about separation. This event involved every Canadian citizen across the nation. It's about property right. And here, we are in Alberta, the most affected province by what happened by the federal government. But we are here today, and we have a tree champion among us who will be speaking to you today. I hope each and every one of you could form his question in a very respectful way. I don't want to know your mother-in-law story. I don't want to know your father-in-law story. When you come to that microphone, ask your question directly, please. Today, we have a pillar of Alberta or Calgary community. A guy, he stand tall for what he believe. He say what he said in very good shape and form. His smile never leave his face. He argue with you, doesn't matter. You like him or you don't. He has a good way to pass his message along to you. He worked for Western Standard as a senior columnist. My friend and my brother, Cory Morgan, he'll be speaking to us tonight. Please, I want you to give him a good, loud hand. My other speaker travel all the way from BC. I tried to do some search about him. I learned a lot of things. I don't want to tell you he worked for United Nations. I didn't tell you that, did I? Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. He used to work for United Nations. He worked in Europe. He worked in multiple other international places. He used to be practicing law, and he worked in constitutional right, former constitutional right in Canadian government and whatever. Jeffrey Rustand, please, I need you guys to welcome him in big hand. My third champion, Alberta Breed, born and raised here. And he was a fighter for a decade. He did many battles. He has a star in his back, and something he should be proud of, as what I heard. And something I'm not going to mention. You guys could do your own search to learn more about him. I really want to say thank you to him, since I learned his mother was sick. And with that being said, he still decided to come to our event. He used to be a former MLA for Drumheller and Stettler, and he fought so hard for property right, and he knows exactly what we're talking about tonight. I really want you to welcome Rick Strankman. Now, finally, I'll announce myself. I'll be the one to annoy you tonight. My name is Mahmoud Mourra. I go by Mac. Born in Lebanon. I've been in this province for over 25 years. I'm Albertan by choice. I'm a proud Canadian sometimes, but Albertan by choice and proud Albertan 1,000,000%. I'll leave you with this now, and I really like to invite my first speaker, Cory Morgan, and after he finishes, he'll be sitting in a stand here. Guys, look at him, watch him, and choose the best question you want to thrill him with. So, Cory Morgan, please, could you come to the stage? Thank you.
Max, always fussy with the microphones. Always. It's not intrusive, is it? Take an eye out with that thing. Well, I'd like to begin with a land acknowledgement as well. I am speaking tonight on Treaty 7 land. That means there was a contract signed over 100 and some years ago that ceded this piece of land forever in perpetuity and extinguished all claims for it. And I'm not just starting that way to be a dick, though I'm prone to that sometimes. It ties into what I'm talking about, because we have a real issue, and that issue is property rights. And these land acknowledgements are actually part of a bigger plot and effort and organization to undercut our property rights. These are not harmless little openings for events. They're a cult-like chant that are programming to people to think that they're on stolen land, to think that they should be feeling guilty for something that happened generations before they were even born. But it also sets the stage for rulings later to take that land away from them. And we can't allow this to continue and think that it's not doing any harm. I attend a rock and lapidary club in Calgary. It's where all the real cool kids hang out. And at our monthly meeting, it starts with a bloody land acknowledgement. It's everywhere. It's insidious, and it's in schools, and it's getting worse. I do work for the Western Standard. I'm a columnist there. We have one of our, Alex Zoltan, he's our BC reporter. And he actually disguised himself as a BC Federation of Teachers member and sat through, oh boy, did he take one for the team. He sat through the anti-racial training seminars for teachers in BC. The whole first segment was all basically religious-based about how Canada was created by some woman who floated out of a turtle's ass or something like that. I don't know. It was a weird religious basis, but this is something that teachers are being taught to teach our children. This is a long-term plan. These children are going to come out of these schools trained to believe that they're on stolen land, trained to believe that they don't belong where they are. That way they aren't going to fight it when that land becomes seized. when that land becomes transferred, when a judge decides, you know what, we've changed our mind, that treaty doesn't mean something, and now it's going away. So these land acknowledgements, they're not a minor thing, and we do have to push back against them, and we've got to bring them to an end. They're part of a bigger thing. Property rights, the theme of everything here, and they are a fundamental right. There's all sorts of rights we speak of. You know, there's free speech, free assembly, very important rights. They're so important they're actually in the charter. Even Pierre Trudeau couldn't write a charter without including some of that in there, though he didn't really cover speech very well. But you notice something that's not in the charter? Property rights. They're not there. Doesn't mean we don't have those rights, but they are not entrenched in the charter, in the Constitution, which would have given us a stronger protection should they be violated. And our property rights violations aren't something we need to fear so much from our neighbors. It's the government that's threatening our property rights. And that's what's brought this to a fore. That's what's got this going. That's part of why this forum is going now. We've seen what happened in British Columbia. We saw the ruling in Richmond with the Cowichan Band. People who thought they owned their property, people who paid taxes on their property, people who worked their asses off, built it, developed it, are now told they don't have title for it. Really? This is insane. But this is where it's at. And it's under appeal. But I mean, if one judge can give it away, the next one can do the same. We never should have gotten to this in the first place, yet here we are. And we're hearing the apologists already coming out. They're saying, don't worry, it doesn't mean much. You know, they're not taking anybody's land away from them. They're not saying the unspoken part yet. Did you think the Cowichan Band spent years going after that land for a moral victory? They want something. The banks know it because they wouldn't finance people's mortgages anymore. So what does the government do? Don't worry, we'll reach into your credit cards and we'll back your mortgages for you for $150 million. That's what the BC government did. Now that shows, again, your land is threatened there. So don't listen to that narrative saying this doesn't mean anything. The banks bloody well know it means something. The businesses that have already bailed out of there know it means something. And that land's worth an estimated $2 billion. $150 million of loan guarantees from other taxpayers isn't going to save that. And it doesn't matter. We should have that right to have our land anyways, and you sell it as a willing seller, not having it taken by the government. It doesn't matter if they offer you twice the value of your home. If you don't want to bloody leave it, you shouldn't have to. But we aren't there. And now we're watching the further developments in British Columbia. Some of the settlements, hundreds of thousands of hectares being given away by the provincial government to Indigenous bands. But the thing with this one is this is a band that was already under treaty because they were saying, well, this is different. It's unceded in British Columbia. This was land that was never settled. That's why we're giving it out now. Well, now you're giving land to people who did sign a treaty. Does it make you feel comfortable here now with this ceded land in Alberta? Listen to some of the narrative online. Listen to some of the activists and the language. Language is important. You can see where they're going and where they're coming from. They're already trying the revisionist redrafting of what those treaties mean. They're saying the treaties were signed under duress. They're saying the treaties actually meant, this is one of their favorites lately, that the land was just to be shared, but it was not to be ceded. Read a treaty. They're very clear. They're simple documents, actually, and they're all available online. That's one of the best developments of the internet of all, at least since lolcats, and you could watch those kittens run around, was the ability to find some of these documents. You know, treaties were mysterious things before. We thought, you know, they were something lawyers would talk about, people would research in Ottawa, politicians, but nobody actually read a treaty. Where would you find it? You'd have to go to some library, dig it out. Now you can go online and see, wait a minute, 90% of the stuff we see going on with Indigenous bands has nothing to do with the bloody treaties. It's not in them. They're actually simple documents. They delineate the amount of land that was going to be ceded, the land that was going to be kept, and they offered some government obligations in exchange for that, a degree of whetstones, horses, some ammunition, a few blankets, some degree of health care, and schooling. That was in all of them. There's an irony. Who demanded the schooling? Well, that's a separate road to go down. Either way, these treaties were not complicated documents, but the interpretations of today are making them complicated. And they were signed, there were translators, they spent months and years on these. They weren't under duress. These people knew what they were getting into. Hey, they were tough times. The Indigenous bands were starving. The buffalo were gone. They were cornered. They couldn't travel like they used to. People were farming. The world had changed. I understand that. And it's probably not the outcome they wanted to see. But we can't relitigate that 150 friggin' years later. Nobody's alive today who signed that treaty on either side. We're all here today, and now we have to unite under modern property rights for all of us. And we can't prosper correctly without property rights. We can't have a good, functional society without property rights. Collectivists, that's the whole thing. Socialism, come on, it's just communism with a coat of paint. It's all the same thing. But what they're after is the private ownership of property. That will not work as long as people have private property. So they have to find ways to undercut it. And that's what we got going on. But you know what we do have are living, breathing examples of communities that don't have property rights. And it comes full circle back to the treaties. If anybody's ever been on to a First Nations reserve, you see what a land without property rights looks like. Corruption, dilapidated houses, poverty, dejection, wild dogs, garbage. That all comes down to property rights, guys. They don't own their homes on there. I've had people ask me about that. What is it with these guys? They're given these homes and they just run them down and let them go to crap. Well, they don't own them. They have no incentive to keep the house up. You don't maintain other people's property. People say, well, renters will do that. Well, it's a different thing. These are socially distressed people in a different state. Plus, if you look at the lack of rights on a reserve, if you fix your house up and make it too nice, it can actually become a target. Suddenly the chief could say, geez, that's a nice place. I love the landscaping. I think my sister would look better in there. We're going to move you on. And I'm sorry, I'm not kidding. That's how bad the tyranny is on some of these reserves. And why? Because there's no defense. Why is there no defense? Because there's no property rights. The people don't own that. They can't say this is mine. And look how it's treating them. Look how it's fared for them. They're miserable. It's awful. And that is what's being brought through these settlements. Imagine all of Canada as one big reserve with no property rights. They had something like that. They called it the Soviet Union. People climbed a wall and got shot at to get the hell away from it. In Cuba, people got on rickety rafts to go in shark-infested waters to try to go somewhere where they could own property. And the world still hasn't learned it. And now, the only thing I can give to socialists is they never give up. When they lose one way, they try to find another way to get to it. Well, here it is. They're using the First Nations things to come at us. So if you think you're secure with these treaties today, you are not. They're coming for our land. And I'm not talking about the Indigenous people. I'm talking about the activists who are using the Indigenous people as a tool in order to undercut our rights. And we don't have a good constitutional defense for it. Even Parliament Hill is under claim right now. And who the hell would want it? What are they going to do with it? Turn it into a resort? Might be better. Do less damage, I guess. But there's nothing they won't reach for. Parts of Victoria, our next speaker will probably speak a bit on that. And I mean, we have to have these discussions, and we need better rights. We need also the right to defend our property. That's been an issue in Canada for a long time, too. Rights have limitations. There's where it gets complicated. That's why we have lawyers. Lawyers are like politicians. They're a necessary evil. But we put up with them. Because, I mean, an absolute property right, you can't shoot somebody for coming onto your land and stealing a $10 item or something. That's unreasonable. That's not properly defending your property, and you should be charged for that. But you should be able to defend your property with force if they really are taking something serious and something along the lines. Finding that balance is difficult, but we have to do it. You can't treat all property the same. You know, this is my phone. I could take it outside and smash it on the ground if I wanted to and throw it into a pool. But a dog is a piece of property too, and I can't do that to a dog. Seriously, you know, it's different laws and applications. Property rights aren't a pure thing, but they're so important. Unfortunately, because of those complexities, that's where it leaves, though, the wiggle room for interpretation, the wiggle room for cracks, and the wiggle room to keep slowly, incrementally taking those rights away from us. That's where the danger comes, and that's where we have to be vigilant. Ourselves. We have to watch the politicians. We have to watch the judges. We have to watch these rulings because it's our future. It is our future. So, I mean, what can we do? Well, it's pretty tough. We need To refine the Constitution, we really should have our property rights entrenched. The default rights should come to the individual for property first. The government should have to make an incredibly strong case to ever take our property away in any possible circumstance. Unfortunately, when we don't have it constitutionally entrenched, that default isn't with us when we're defending our property. Opening the Constitution, well, some of us here look like we might be old enough to have been around from Meech Lake in Charlottetown. That was the last real serious attempt, and it never came anywhere close. But I mean, other things we can do: stringently defend our property rights. We got to elect people who will do so. We have to question our elected representatives, make sure that they intend to stand up for property rights like Mr. Strankman has. Make sure that they do understand how important these rights are. Look, politics is often a popularity contest. You're not always getting the best and brightest in there, and I know you guys know that, or you wouldn't be here tonight. It's up to us, though. In a participatory democracy, we've got to make sure we can get the best we can and fire the ones when they don't perform how they will. Ask them what they think about property rights. Ask them how they'll protect your property rights, how they'll stand up for them, how they'll speak up for them in the legislature or parliament or wherever they may be standing on behalf of you. And make sure they're defending these things. And if you get the opportunity, we're not going to go too far down that side road tonight that was mentioned before, but if we ever get the opportunity to draft a new system, when that time comes, make sure that the rights to property are clearly entrenched within that system, and they are protected. There's a lot to cover. There'll be some Q&As. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to hearing what the others have to say on it as well. So again, I'll be back up. I'll be talking some more. But hold your officials accountable. Bring this subject up. Don't let it slide under the radar. People forget about property rights and they don't realize how important it is. It's like so many fundamental rights in that if you don't have that one, all the rest of them pretty much aren't worth a crap for you. You got to protect them all if you're going to keep them all. And property rights is on top of that list. On top of it all as well, get on those school boards, get into your local clubs, even the Lapidary Club, and end those damn land acknowledgements already. So I'll leave it at that, and I look forward to future discussion, or further discussion as we go. Thank you, guys.
There's water too. Well, actually, we have him for 30 minutes, but he cut it a little bit shorter, guys. Give him another hand. I had the paper to touch your hand. Oh, it's okay. Okay, that's good. That's good. Actually, I agree with everything Cory said. And property right isn't just your home, your farm, your animal, or your gun, unregistered guns, the one you have at home that's the government trying to take away from you while you want to defend yourself or somehow practice a hobby you like. Property right include your social media as they're trying to bully us, including our kids, they're trying to tell us how to teach them or raise them, including every animal on our farm now, they want to charge us, for God's sake, fart tax. If they fart, they want to see how much they charge us for our animals. So this is what property right, and this is why we need to get involved, engage, and understand how important it is for us to give our future generation, our kids, a path to go through so they could be successful and let this community get stronger. Because I do believe a community that have a right to protect their own property will be stronger. The province will be stronger and the country will be stronger. And a community or a country that want to oppress the people of what they own and what they do, it'll get weaker. And you want a life example? Look what happened to Soviet Union. And look all those dictatorship of the country where it came from. They'll never have a stability. And this is where Canada's heading nowadays. So that's why we need to pay attention to every detail and try to educate our kids, because they're living in a school. They think everything is easy because they didn't pay the price we are paying for our mortgages, for our insurance, for the life they are having, or the house they are living in. But when they get to that level of the responsibility, it'll be a bit too late to understand how important it is to protect that right. Now I'm going to invite another speaker here to be with us. And my friend Jeffrey, he came all the way from BC, a lawyer. I did tell you about him before. He didn't work for United Nations. I was mistaken. He didn't want to say it. So Mr. Jeffrey Rustand. Oh, Here you go. Please, could you come to the stage? No, I'm sorry. I thought. Thank you, brother.
I did work for the UN, and I'm doing penance, so be kind, be patient. Good. Strange things are going on in BC with regard to Aboriginal land claims. I'm going to give you an overview of what's happening and how it's changed from the past. And then after I've done that, I'm going to go switch over to Alberta and let you know that although you think you are protected by Treaty 6, 7, and 8, you are not. You can become a second BC, and it's an easy thing. First, I'm going to give you some background on Aboriginal rights. Section 35 recognizes Aboriginal rights in the Constitution, 1982. At the time, there were treaty rights. They were a thing. Aboriginal rights did not exist. They were nothing. The Supreme Court of Canada had to invent them out of nothing, and then they engineered wholesale constitutional changes to make room for them in the Constitution, and that gets us to where we are now. I'm talking about an early phase of Aboriginal rights. Even the Supreme Court realized, hey, there's a problem here. It's not a good thing to have special rights for part of the population. It's just not a good thing. We don't like it. But they really wanted to give Aboriginal rights to the Aboriginals. They saw it as noblesse oblige. They wanted to do something good. And so you can look at the tests they devised for Aboriginal rights were designed to really constrain them, contain them, to make them safe so they don't cause too much trouble. However, things change, and it got out of control. Now, I'm going to talk about Aboriginal land title. Aboriginal land title was invented in the Dalgamut case, I think it was 1997. Very vague test, sufficient occupation, continuity, exclusive control. In fact, so vague was it that the courts of appeal in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, they thought it meant that their provinces were entirely 100% Aboriginal title. This was around 2001, 2002. Now, at that time, even the Supreme Court of Canada was still sane enough to say, oh no, you can't have this. They cut the test right down to what was called a site-specific test. Areas where there was intensive activity, villages, the environs of the villages, other areas where there's intensive activity, the key concepts, intensive activity and site specificity, certain sites. The industry, I forgot to mention the industry, the Aboriginal industry, the Indigenous industry, what I call the industry, they taunted and they mocked the Supreme Court of Canada for this. They said, you just made a postage stamp test. Almost no land will become Aboriginal title. Bad, 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 bad. Supreme Court of Canada, after several years of this taunting, felt the sting, and in the Chilcotin test, they greatly expanded the test. It's hard to explain. There have been too few cases. It seems to be that people I've talked to who are engaged in the litigation and doing this day in and day out, they say probably using that test, maybe 6 to 10% of British Columbia would be Aboriginal title land, but no one really knows. That's what it was looking like. Now, Aboriginal rights and Aboriginal land title, I describe as a misbegotten type of rights regime. but it's something I call survivable. We could have survived that, not happily, but we could survive. Then things changed. What? Then things changed. Starting probably around 2016, 2017, 2018, the federal government began to radically change the way it addressed Aboriginal rights and Aboriginal land settlements. And around the same time, maybe a little later, BC did the same thing. We got a new, what I call a radical extremist Aboriginal rights regime came into being. That's the one we're in now. And what that was, in its summary, roughly, look at the Aboriginal population in BC is roughly about 3%. They're going to get about 80% of the province's Aboriginal land title. That was the plan, that was how they were working toward it. Now, and then the 97%, the 97%, the 97% of BC's population, the non-Aboriginal, they're going to have to do the 20% of the provinces left to them, and also they'll be stuck with what we call a rump government, a rump jurisdiction, a rump constitutional order. Huh? Should I start again? No. So that's a radical change. Now, so what? I've told this to people, many people in British Columbia, and they look at me and they say, so what? What's the problem? Where's the problem? So what? Briefly, it's undoing British Columbia, it's undoing our economy, it's undoing our political order, it's undoing our constitutional order. I'll get into more details on that. Some background, more background. Our Constitution is what they call a liberal democratic constitution, basic model. You all know it. You got your citizens, equal citizens. You got democracy, one citizen, one vote. They put representatives to Parliament. Parliament makes laws. Government implements the laws. And you have a judiciary. And you have equality before the law. You have rule of law. And also public lands, public resources are to be used for public interest, the public good, and only for that. Not for private gain, not for special purposes, not for private, not for cronies. It's not crony capitalism, it's not for favored demographic groups. That's a basic model, liberal democracy. Now, even the early phase, the more limited Aboriginal rights regime violated that, of course. But it was, like I said, survivable. Not so bad as to cause too many problems. Survivable. However, the new regime, we're going to go into more details on the new regime. It is creating, this is one point to get, I've had trouble getting this through to people. We're creating an Aboriginal caste. It's entrenched in the Constitution, special rights, special powers, special authority, special privileges. Entrenched in the Constitution. Now this is the Aboriginal caste, 3% of British Columbia. Now, and all it means, essentially a caste is you have a group of people and they have hereditary, by hereditary means they come into the special rights and privileges. There's a flip side. There's a flip side to caste. That's dispossession. The rest of the province, the 97%, are dispossessed. They're dispossessed of the land and natural resources. They're dispossessed of the constitutional rights and the constitutional order. Now that's a strange idea, but the idea of being dispossessed of constitutional rights and order is a very real thing. They're dispossessed of the benefits that would have come from the lands and resources. And now private property, there's dispossession here as well. Now when it comes to private property, it's still being, are you not hearing me still? Still bad? Oh, that work? Private property. It's still an appeal. The Cowardson case is still an appeal. Cowardson is still an appeal. Now, probably, no, you are going to have all through that 80% of British Columbia that becomes Aboriginal land. That Aboriginal title prevails over private property. Now, in most cases, the overwhelming number of cases, the private property will not be taken away from the private owner. This is a prediction I'm making. I believe it will be so. However, there's another type of dispossession that happens. You are going to, or your property owners are going to have to pay full market price again for your properties. And that is compensation to the Aboriginal claimants. Now, probably it will not be you personally who pay it. It will be a public thing. The government will step in. The government will step in to save you after creating this problem. They'll come to you to save you, and it will essentially be they'll incur a massive, titanic public debt to pay off this compensation. So on top of, we're almost 3 minutes left? Oh my God. Okay, so you're going to have, we have a massive debt already in BC. On top of that, you're going to get a titanic debt, a gargantuan debt plus a titanic debt, just to pay off on the private property. Alberta, I'm going to quickly give you Alberta. You think that Treaties 6, 7, and 8 are going to protect you? They are not. They can be blown away quite easily. They can be done. Actually, Cory mentioned there are several arguments that have been worked out by the industry. DRS, the Indians were forced to sign these. They didn't sign them with free will. They didn't have the proper information, so they weren't properly informed. They couldn't give informed consent. I can't get into that right now, but these are the arguments that have been worked out. And also, they were mistaken as to the terms, so again, because of the mistake, they did not give informed consent. Another line of argument is that there are actually international treaties, and the conditions of a national treaty were not met, and therefore they are invalid. Now, I actually don't think these attacks will work. The idea that these treaties are valid is very deeply ingrained in the law and deeply ingrained in practice and politics. But there are other ways. If you get a bad government in in Alberta, they can simply agree to reopen and renegotiate the treaties. It takes nothing, easy to do. And they will renegotiate those treaties according to the current extreme Aboriginal rights regime I've been talking about in British Columbia. And so that it will make you like BC. Now, something else, if you're talking about land revenue sharing, land sharing and revenue sharing, reinterpret the treaties, keep them the way they are, either through a political agreement or a judicial declaration. You will reinterpret them so that they did not cede the land, even though that's what they say. Instead, they provided for land sharing, which means there's some form of Aboriginal title continuing, and this will give them at the least a veto power over how land and natural resources are used. It might give them some exclusive use and control. And so you're back almost where BC is at this moment. So you notice, red flags, and I'm finished. Red flags, land acknowledgement, red flag. Any talk of reopening and renegotiating, red flag. Any talk of land sharing, revenue sharing, red flag. These are the industry moving on Alberta. They look at Alberta and they salivate. They want you. They're moving at you. Just to let you know, and I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Well, could we give another hand for Jeffrey since he traveled from BC to support us and help us? Now we have another Alberta pillar, a man who fought hard. He has a scar and a star in his chest and a scar in his back for all the battle he took to defend Albertan, especially the farmer. Please, I'd like you to welcome the former MLA, Rick Strankman.
Which mic is the live one here? This? Oh, okay, thank you. I was taught that you're supposed to swallow the thing. I don't know if I can do that. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for allowing me. I reached out to Cory when I learned about this event and asked him if there would be an opportunity for me to speak. And he said, well, Stranks, there's a microphone available. And I don't know what he really meant by that. But I've got some minutes here and some time. And many things flow through my mind on these occasions. Some will say there isn't much between there, but in 1995, I took it upon myself to exhibit some civil disobedience and hauled some of our my grain into the U.S. as part of a Manitoba event. And I was feeling remorseful about that. And I called my American uncle, who I kind of liked a lot. We always and told him about my transgressions, and this could lead to a lot of shit on my part. And he, oh, Rick, don't worry about that. He says, we had a bunch of trouble down here too. You probably heard about it. What? Oh yeah, he says, you probably heard about it. Those guys. They caused a bunch of problems. They were throwing tea in the harbor a long time ago, and look what that did. And so with that, I think that we are struggling in Alberta for our property rights. As a farmer, I was naive, thinking that property rights meant dirt. Meant the dirt that I had on my fingernails, it meant the dirt that I farmed, and such, but it doesn't. Each and every one of you, or many of you at least, probably have driver's licenses, or marriage licenses, or gun licenses. I have a pilot's license. I have an ability to apply chemicals by air. And that is a property right. Or now these things will allow you to do all sorts of stuff. Even presenting a speech. Or this booklet I have here is a part of property rights. Many of you don't know that prior to my election in 2012, the Progressive Conservative government of the day, and I believe it was under then Minister Ted Morton, they created a Bill 36, which a certain section of that bill specifically states that the provincial government can extinguish, I should get this, the provincial government can extinguish any instrument issued by it. So all those things that I like to think that are mine, the title to my land, marriage license, my pilot's license, everything, it might not necessarily be mine. So having sat in the legislature across from the Orange Horde, after Danielle Smith and company decided it was the wisest move to cross the floor, Albertans were mad and they voted for the NDP rather than the corrupted portion of Wild Rose. And I was just praying, fingers crossed, that the NDP didn't take that legislation and use it to its fullest extent. And so onward, property rights are foundational. Recently, I was fortunate enough to travel to the United States and visit in the Smithsonian Museum of American History. And as you enter that museum, you come upon a part where it says it's a giant leap of faith. And under the 1297 Magna Carta, which gave powers to the person, not the king, the Americans, the colonialists, were telling Mother England to take a hike, Mother England with its feudal system, to take a hike. And their great leap of faith, 250 plus years ago, 1789 actually is when it was entrenched, to give the power to the person. And you were born with those rights under God. You're born with those rights. It's intrinsic to your being. It's not to be negotiated. Like Canada is one nation under God, but then the second line, to my understanding, is the rule of law. Well, the rule of law to me is just two lawyers negotiating on your rights. You're born with those rights. They're intrinsic to your being. It's a very powerful thing, and that's why I drove here today. And when I learned about this and somewhat elbowed my way to this podium here to express it to you folks, it's very important. It's foundational. Our Premier, thank you. Prior to my incarceration on the wheat board thing in 2002, my then cellmate and I, unknowing to me, my friend, we traveled to see the Property Rights Institute in Calgary here to explain to the person about our property rights, and that we were expect help from a third-party organization, the Property Rights Institute, to help defend us against the infringement, the federal infringement on our property rights. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the office manager or the person in charge was our present premier, Danielle Smith. And she was and knows what property rights are. So why our Albertan property rights are not defended to a fuller extent of the law is beyond me. I can only surmise that some of it is born off the swearing in ceremony, which I also went through in the chamber, where you swear your allegiance to the king or the queen at that time. You swear your allegiance to the king, you swear allegiance to the chamber, then you swear your allegiance to the constituents. And I took it upon myself, being the redneck that I am, I added, and indeed all Albertans, because that's what our representative role truly is. It isn't about Danielle Smith or Rick Strankman or Cory Morgan or Mac. It's about all Albertans, and it's about all of you having your individual rights and brought forward in a legal, and another word I'd like to add, accountable, orderly fashion. Our judges aren't accountable to us. They're appointed by federal agencies. Your schools in Maricopa County, for example, in Arizona, there's 8 million people in Maricopa County. They have elected counselors, but they also elect the district attorney, they elect the clerk of the court, they elect school superintendents, they elect the sheriff, they elect the assistant sheriff. They're all accountable after a fashion. And one person said, well, Rick, we have such horrible corruption. And I said, you don't know what we got, because we have no accountability. You have a mechanism, however painful it is, and that's what Cory is talking about, getting forward. And that's why I came to point each and every one of you of your personal responsibilities to spread the message that you are born with those rights. That's intrinsic to a foundational democratic society. The liberal democratic system that the gentleman prior to me described is all marvelous in a theoretical sense, but when cronyism, favoritism, corruption get in there, how do you get accountability? Every 4 years you're going to wash it out? And so it's kind of like what Cory's talking about, unfortunately, our First Nations people. They just exchange one chief and his cousins for another one and his cousins. It's not acceptable. So if I can encourage you to take it upon your individual selves to go out and stand up for your rights and ensure and encourage everybody else that you meet and deal with the same enthusiasm or the same entity to go forward. It's so foundational. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to your questions.
Since I learned Rick's mother, she's over 100 years old, and he still look after his mom, I'd like you guys to give him another hand. And another thing I'd like to share with you, we need to do a better work. Many of us here today, we share the same color of the hair. It's getting white. And this is a sign of either expiration or best before, I believe. I keep using this terminology. We need younger generation. We need to push them to be with us. Sorry? Oh, nice. Big hand. Actually, amazing. That's good to have you with us. Malcolm raising his hand in the back, I believe. The question is coming. You need to be with me for a second here. Please, I saw something. And I really want to thank my kids. They came to support me today. In each and every one of us, we need to push our kids to be with us. Please, guys, we could do that. Before we go to Q&A, as been directed, we're going to pass a bucket. Some of us donate time. Some of us volunteer a lot of time to help and assist, but we need your donation. Event like this to keep happening, we need your support, financial support, because the enemy we're facing is so powerful and they're so rich. In fact, they're using our taxpayer to fight us back. So to donate and be generous tonight, that's something we encourage each and every one of you to do. Please help and support to have more events like this so we could be successful. And don't be shy to swear and criticize the Prime Minister of this country and the Liberal Party, please. Have at it, all you want. So now we're going to be having a Q&A, and the mic, we have a remote mic. Please, if you want to have any question to all the guests we have, the champion we have among us, you could line in the middle here somewhere, and I'll be giving the mic to whoever want to ask a question. But please, try to be specific and direct of what you want to ask. Don't tell me the story of your life. Let's be straightforward about what you want to ask, because time is limited, and we really need to get those guys. They might not want to leave, and some of them need to travel back or drive a long distance. Thank you so much, guys, and I'll be with you on the floor.
For those who have questions, Matt has a QS microphone. Just as you notice, it's being live streamed right now, so by putting your question on the microphone, you consent for your question to be live streamed, okay? Do we have Q papers? I think we have some some papers for questions. We do? Okay, sounds good. Just don't forget to unmute the microphone, Max, in Zoom. Also, if you have questions, we will also encourage everybody to not, if you have questions, just making sure that your phones are muted at all times. If you want to have questions, you just refer to documentation how to mute your phone. And please do not interrupt when people are asking questions. Okay?
I wasn't muted. That's good. So I'd like you guys to line up here. And then for those who doesn't want to be, I'm not sure if there's I don't think we have any coward here. All people willing to stand up for what we believe is right. I don't want to call coward, but sorry I came out. If someone want to write a question in secret do it without letting me know. Without letting me know. So I have the first person here with me, Amit. I know him. He'd like to ask a question. Who'd like to ask for? And please go ahead.
Hey, I'm Amit. My question is, what do you think the provincial government can do to strengthen property rights in Alberta?
Cory will take that, I guess.
The mic's on. There we go. What can the provincial government do? As I said, because the Charter and Constitution are federal, but we do have a provincial Bill of Rights, and it does have writing in it to say the enjoyment of property, which is something, at least it mentions property, but it's not really a full protection for it. That could be more strongly entrenched and more strongly followed through with anyways to show that. And the government can act as an intervener in cases. It can protect its citizens. It can stand up for them in court and in trials. So there are things the provincial government can do. But again, fundamentally, we get some systemic issues, I think, that need bigger addressing that the provincial government's limited on.
Rick, you want to say something?
Well, I just wanted to add that Cory's exactly correct there, that there is the federal override to our property rights. It's like my challenge for the federal legislation known as the Canadian Wheat Board. It was federal legislation, and as long as we have the federal provincial, I'll use the word respect for the federal legislation. Otherwise, the Alberta government could do many great and wonderful things for entrenching our personal property rights.
All I would say is with regard to the Aboriginal rights situation, if your government, it's actually very simple. They just don't have to be idiots. All they have to do is don't do land acknowledgements, do not talk about or develop any policy about land sharing or revenue sharing, and just stop it there. And obviously don't reopen the treaties. That will go a long way. It'll just protect you from the bad stuff from even beginning.
We have another question here.
Thank you. My name is Turner. I've been in Calgary, Alberta for a long, long time here with my ancestors. Also, I'd like to ask you, sir, in the white shirt over there, in the legal council that you're in, regarding about the laws you're stating. There are maritime laws and the maritime law and equity laws that they're using for land and not for our people. The land is not for that type of laws. It's for the water and ocean, seawater. That's piracy. Common law and natural law is the only way to go for our type of people in this land.
What's the question?
That I'm asking that if you know what the word law means. You understand the word law means?
So,
I'm asking you were there in the white shirt.
do you understand the question, Jeffrey? What was the question?
Law. Law stands for land, air, and water.
Law stand for land, air, and water.
Correct. Not a maritime law, not a maritime law, and not equity law. Because these laws are not made for the land. Common law, natural law, and castle law is made for us. They took out common law in 1938 for the people of Alberta. That's why it's never used. Rupert's Land, 1860, was castle law that we had until 1970.
What's the question, brother?
And do we have any proof that you guys can use this as a law land or against castle law? It's our natural way of life.
Well, I'm sorry, I don't fully understand the implications of the question, but I think now that the general population understands law as it's written, although there's certain interpretations. What I was trying to say is those interpretations are judged by judges as those writings are brought forward to them. So that's a complicating issue.
We have someone else, please.
Okay, you hold the mic. Okay. My question is mainly for Cory. The people here, their chief, let's say, capacity is their voice, right? So maybe, I obviously respect your work, and he's a great YouTube channel if you're not already following it, Cory Morgan's channel. So how can we do better with engaging online? How can all these people be more potent or powerful with their voices, and where might they go? What platform is lacking their presence, and what words or rhetoric should they be using to elevate property rights as central?
Yeah, well, we've got an incredible tool at our disposal for public engagement like we never had before. It used to be just the domain of journalists and politicians to be able to get the public voice, and maybe some academics. You could write a letter to an editor perhaps, and that was the only way anybody might see a lot of what you thought. Now, at your fingertips, with your phone, with your keyboard, you can express yourself, and you can highlight issues, as you're saying, different platforms, YouTube, Instagram, Reddit, if you really want to punish yourself. But you can have those debates, and it's a very good question, because one of the things I do see online, I see a lot of discourse, I see a lot of debate, is put it out there rationally. Don't get pulled into the mire. Don't get pulled into the name-calling, the brinkmanship, and bring an educated, rational discussion to it. It's an art form to do it right online, to do it effectively online. I stir people up, but at the same time, I like to have a message underneath it. And unfortunately, when I get things going, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube or whatever, I'll get a long string of F you, stick it up this, put it in that. It's unfortunate. And those people who don't like me and don't like the case I'm making aren't countering my points when they do that. They're just making themselves look like idiots. But we do that too, to a degree, and there's a temptation with that. So take on that great power we now have to have these discussions and talk about these things. You're obviously engaged. You came out tonight to learn about it, to talk about it, but take it on and realize there's a sense of responsibility with it too. You can reach as many people now as I can, or perhaps more. Anything you say could go viral and reach a lot of people. So maybe just take that extra 10 seconds before you post something and think, is this actually going to help? Is this going to inform more people? Is this going to strengthen the broader public on that issue? And the more of us that are coming at it that way, the more effective we'll all be. So, we've got this new tool, we're evolving to it. We got to kind of train ourselves to be really effective in using it. And I think it's just in having that self-awareness before we start typing, we can be much more effective. Because this, I'll tell you something else, the politicians do watch the social media streams. They do watch that discussion, and they do see what's going on, and it does impact their decisions. So if we can have a better impact on those streams, we can have a better impact on policy.
Thank you, Cory. Rick, would you like to add something? Rick Strankman.
I'm just fine with that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I have another person here.
Hello. I understand that right now one of the highest expenses on the federal budget is native money that they send out. I think it's actually the second highest in the entire federal budget. If they're even interested in looking at the land claims, if they say that the original land claims were bogus and they didn't understand them, how about they return all the money that they've taken in over the years? And then if they do that first, then we'll talk about the land claims.
Any comment, guys?
That's an excellent point. In fact, there should be a full accounting. A lot of money. The current, just like I was checking this the other day. The annual budget now from Ottawa, just Ottawa, on Indigenous spending is about $40 billion a year. And an awful lot of money and other resources have gone into Aboriginal communities over the last 100 years and so. It ought to be part of any accounting, but it won't be. So,
thank you.
Gentlemen, thanks for your time today and for laying it out very clearly. Over the past little while, there's been a bit of a sobering reality for myself that we, as Canadians and Albertans, perhaps less so people in this room, are under the illusion that there exist protections against a corrupt government. This country has and does operate on little more than good faith with its citizens, and they've broken that faith and continue the march. Now, regarding property rights and all instruments issued by the government, is it correct then that our only defense is effectively the individuals that we elect and hope that they respect them?
Well, if I could jump into that, probably wrongfully, but it is sort of a public acknowledgement of what the laws are in this country, and if the majority accept what goes down, then that becomes the norm. It's kind of a populist thing to some regards, but like I said earlier, we don't elect our judges. We don't elect a district attorney, and there's no direct accountability to the people. Some would say, and I have lawyer friends who argue against me in that frame, that could then become too populist. If the people want to, have some outlandish law or would accept it, that the sheriff could allow. Let's say, just driving in here today, like I noticed that the speed limit on the QE2 is 120, but there's always guys driving 130, and once you get the mob going 130, well, who's gonna stop that? And is that right or wrong? I mean, it's something small, but it could be highly catastrophic when you have an accident. So should there be a liability for somebody that causes an accident when they're going over there? Quite possibly. But if the general populace accepts that, well, if you have elected sheriffs, how do you revert that or contend with that?
Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you. That was superb. My name is Shane Roberts. I actually have two questions from our audience, so I'll get to the first one. What is being asked here is feedback on something that Keith Wilson has noted, looking at how convoluted these land claims, Jeffrey himself, you called them extreme and disruptive agenda. In response to the BC government promising, don't worry, we'll buy that land back from the natives on your behalf using tax dollars. Keith Wilson has alleged that BC may have to declare independence to clear the property rights in BC. And the thinking here is that really it's going to become such a mess, so convoluted, you need a complete restart, bring the natives to the table. Let's start negotiations now. Feedback, please.
Yes. It's a simple answer. The entire process, from beginning to end, even from the earlier stages of Aboriginal rights and when they're still kind of moderate, a big part of the problem is that these cases go on for years, they're expensive, they go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And that's one big problem with it. Is it such a mess that we have to start all over again? In my view, yes. I don't know how to do that. But I think you're correct, you're completely correct. Right now, when I look at British Columbia and the Aboriginal rights, Aboriginal land model, I don't know how it can be reformed. It almost seems that it has to start over again. It is a big, expensive mess.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And for the second question, this is a historical one. In Alberta, what proof does anyone have that the Treaty 7 natives were under duress at that particular moment when they signed the treaties 150 years ago?
There's no proof whatsoever. Well, it's one of the problems we have too, though, when we've put things into, and that's been a precedent in courts, because there was no written language for Indigenous people, that we'll take oral history as if it was fact, And we could say, well, my great-great-grandma told my great-grandfather told my grandfather told my dad that they were under duress, so damn it, that now has become admissible into court, and that's kind of the sort of thing that's happening. Again, they were stressed. They were tough times. I do feel that a lot of them perhaps felt cornered. But if you read a lot of the history, it was very well documented that the government did do what it could at its time to have interpreters, to have a lot of meetings, a lot of back and forth. They might not have liked what they were signing at that time, I think, for many of them, but those chiefs seem to be very well aware of exactly what they were signing. And we should be actually, it's an irony because the old call used to be respect the treaties. And now that those treaties, as I said, they're in the public and people can read them, now more of the activists are saying, don't read those things. We're going to make a new interpretation.
Thanks, Shane. Abdul.
Hi, good evening. I have a question regarding the common good of our land and human rights. Where you stated, good evening, my name is Abdu. I have a question regarding the common law regarding the human rights of the land, where one of you has stated that the rights are before God. Now, 90% of Alberta property owners do not even have rights to their water. How do you feel about that?
The question, 90% of Albertans, they don't have the right to their water. What do you say about that?
Water right?
As a property owner or landowner, maybe.
As a property owner,
Yes.
90% of inhabitants in Alberta,
Yeah.
90% of inhabitants in Alberta that own their own property do not have rights to their own water on their own land.
I'm not familiar with that. I have a water well that I can use
Okay,
to my...
well, we're talking about people in municipalities.
That's what I'm at. I'm in the country. I have a water well. I
Oh,
have
okay,
full rights
but-
to my water.
But we're talking, yeah, that's for you, but the thought process is, and in the law as well, is all these municipalities, and there's 6 million people in Alberta, they do not even have rights to their own water on their own land. So if we're talking about property rights and water is a fundamental right, we should have a right to our own water on our own land.
Thanks, Abdul.
In my understanding, I too have wells on our property, and I recently drilled a water well that is licensed by the province of Alberta. So to my comment earlier about Bill 36, that the government could rescind that license, but if I make application for that license, I'm not necessarily denied. It's simply a request that I make. There's no, other than processing fees, I have access to that water. It's in my case, the well driller can't get a license to drill the wells without being authorized by the province to do that. It's like driving on the road. Why do you have a driver's license to drive on the road?
But under God, like one of you had said, we have rights under God. Water is a human right from God. We should not have to even file to take water from the rain. We can't even take water from the sky.
I'm not familiar with that. I know people that collect their own rainwater for their own private purposes. But
Thanks,
you have an
thanks,
interesting
Abdul.
discussion.
I have another question.
Hello, everyone. My name is Charlotte, and I live in Calgary. And I've been a very strong advocate for a free and independent, prosperous, and sovereign Alberta. Let's hear it. Let's hear it. And one of the arguments that often comes up online is Alberta can't be independent because it's owned by the treaty owners. And I know we've talked about it a little bit tonight, but I've had a hard time hearing over there, so you might have already answered this question. So is that an argument against Alberta independence because it's owned under the treaties or not? And I don't know if each of you want to answer that, or Cory, if you want to take that.
Sure. I mean, just in that abstract conversation, 98.6%, I believe, of the province was forever ceded. If you read those treaties and take those texts as what they're originally written for, It's only 1.4% of the province that would not be applied if the province were to become independent down the road or something. Now that still means that 1.4% is very important, and that is in the possession of the Indigenous bands, and something has to be done to accommodate and negotiate and figure out with those treaty rights, which would have to be maintained and respected. But as far as it being a hard hindrance, people misphrase that, speaking of the misinformation that goes around a lot. They keep talking about, you might have seen those internet memes that show a map of Alberta, Treaty 6, 7, 8. Look at that, all of Alberta's treaty land. It means it's not theirs. Actually, it means the opposite. Treaty 6, 7, and 8 all said that land is ceded forever. But don't let them rewrite that, because that's what they're trying to do. And it wasn't a sharing agreement. It said surrender.
And can you just remind me or remind us what ceded means?
Ceded means to give up, to surrender, to pass along, to stop offering a claim to in the future. It's transferring your property to somebody else.
Yeah, or in other words, it's completely gone. You can't get it back. It's gone.
Actually, if I could add to that, out where I live is an area known as the Neutral Hills, where their different bands actually went back and forth depending on the season, depending on the food and the conditions of their winter and stuff like that. So the boundaries that were hard written in these treaties was by the First Nations people of that area of that time were nebulous. They didn't necessarily, they fought amongst themselves to maintain their rights to a certain area, whether it be for food or lodging or whatever it might be. And then when the treaties were settled, then there was hard lines drawn, and they agreed to them. Just if I could, as a grammarian, to your word of ceded, I spell it C-E-D-E-D, seeded. It's not seeded like I would seed wheat or something like that.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Charles. Now we have Peter.
Hi. I'm just wondering why historical context isn't used when we're looking at the past. We're all the sons of and daughters of immigrants. I look back in my family's history, forced off the land in Europe, property I can't go back to, and apparently I'm just supposed to go along with it. So I do. And so when I hear this thing way back, when this land was surrendered, I just think about the Indian wars that they had down in the States, and maybe there was a discussion, boys, sign or die. And it sounds harsh, but why don't we accept that and get on with it?
I mean, that pretty much covers it. We do have to just accept it and get on with it. It was a different time. It was a harsh time. It was literally generations and generations ago. We can't keep relitigating something of our ancestors. We'll never move forward as long as we keep trying to do that.
Thank you, Cory. Let me read this question, and I'll go back to C.W. Alexander. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
So someone asked here, he had a mentor who was very wise, and he often said the issues can involve a three-way ping pong. As you mentioned, Aboriginal people in residential school, do you see perhaps that the CPP or CCP might also be involved?
Is Chinese party involvement? There's issues with foreign interference in the Chinese Communist Party, if that's what he's referencing, but I know nothing about it being involved with residential schools. I can't.
Okay. Thanks, Cory.
C.W. Alexander, AlbertaRenewal.com. It seems in Alberta we have the DEI cult. It seems we also have the Smith-Carney climate cult. And also it seems we have the land acknowledgement cult, none of which the current Smith government is prepared to address, which effectively is an alignment as an Ottawa First government. Maybe it's time for an Alberta First government that ends the doublespeak. Is there a specific bill in Alberta that could be proposed to get the impact of language out of government so that our government focuses on governing, not brainwashing on what no longer serves Albertans.
I sat in the chamber for a while, and you know, we had comments like that come up, or discussions of that. It might be better directed to present Premier's talk show on Saturday. You know, your taxpayer dollars are paying for that, and you know, it's a complicated question. But my whole goal to this event and this evening is accountability for your property rights, and that's kind of, I think, where you're leading. And if we have some form, increasing forms of accountability, then all that should flow together for the greater benefit of Albertans.
Thank you, Rick. I'm going to move on for the next question.
Yes, and thank you for all you do here tonight. Thank you.
My name is Marilyn. Thank you very much for what you've given us. I'd like to ask a property rights question that's a slightly different threat. And that threat is, what are our rights? The federal government apparently can do infrastructure, big mega projects, and deem that they can expropriate our land. And they apparently there was some attempt, and I don't think they were successful, but they were trying to put in legislation federally that we wouldn't even have the right to recourse under this type of expropriation. And apparently in Ontario right now, there's a lot of concern with farmers and other people over their land being expropriated for this mega project or train, high-speed rail, because it would divide farms and things like that. So what are our rights if the federal government comes knocking and says, we're going to take your land?
It's an area of law I don't really know about, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, we have some rights. There's where I was talking about where the property rights can't be absolute. Even in the United States, where they're much more strongly protected, they still have eminent domain. Whereas if a large piece of infrastructure of some sort, I mean, the intent at that time was rail lines or town expansions or things like that. There are times in a growing economy where there's just no choice but to expropriate privately owned land. You need all the protections you can get, though, to make sure that it is in the national interest, which with a corrupted government, that's not always the case. You got to make sure that the landowner is fully compensated for anything that is taken. We have mechanisms in place. Do they always work right? No, probably not. And we just have to be as aware as we can to make sure that when the expropriation happens, it's only because it absolutely must, and that the person who is impacted gets compensated. These are things that I believe we have the protections in our law, but they might not be fully properly utilized all the time. And it's always going to be a fuzzy area, and that's why if you want good job security, it's in being a lawyer.
Thanks, Cory. Thanks, sister.
Going back to the prominent theme in the evening that you gentlemen have been talking about, the land acknowledgements, and the question coming up, what can we do about it? And I want to get your thoughts on level of engagement by ourselves and others. My thoughts around going to town councils, going to school council meetings, being involved in these, being part of these, seeing that as a critical element of how we get involved, speaking up. You talked about pressure, how pressure in New Brunswick from the First Nations was effective in terms of them changing their mind on that. What can we do? And how would you say the importance of us getting involved in applying that pressure in those various areas? And what kind of areas would you encourage us to get involved in?
Well,
I'll just do one little thing on the land acknowledgement. Regarding land acknowledgements, land acknowledgements, I found this is it's a technique, and it's a technique that people don't understand what's going on. It's being used for various political purposes to establish a political ground, a legal ground of things that later on might become useful for the government moving to increase Aboriginal land rights in Alberta. One of the best ways of dealing with this is like when someone's doing a mid-level provocation. You explain to people, oh, do you see here what he's doing? This is land acknowledgement. This is the reason they're doing it. And then this is the reason, as an education to everyone there of the trick, what's going on. And that's one of the best and most effective ways of dealing with it.
I'd say in general, authoritarians thrive on our apathy. And we have a lot of mechanisms actually where we can take very direct control of things that are happening around us, but we got to get off our asses and do it. At a town hall meeting, I saw a great exchange from a speaker when somebody stood up and said, there was a drag queen story hour held in our local library and kids were there. How can I stop that? And the speaker just said, well, have you ever been to your library committee meeting? Have you ever taken part? She said, I didn't even know there was a committee. Yes, there is. It's a public thing. In fact, those are the usual things you show up and there's only 6 people there. And you could probably get an executive position within that board just by showing up if you want it. And the left has been very, very good at this. And they've been taking those positions. They've learned they can't win. The NDP won't win the federal government and they have a difficulty winning the provincial government, but they own our civic governments. They own the school boards because they come out and use them. And you know what? That's where we got to start. Pay attention. Somebody's complaining about the schools. Ask the person, do you know who your school board member is? And I bet you 90% of the time they don't. So it's on us. There's a responsibility that comes with democracy too. So where to begin? There's so many places you can. We only have so much time, so I guess pick which spot is most important to you and get active with it. We do have the means, and we've kind of abdicated them a bit, and that's part of why the local level has gotten so bad.
Cory's exactly right. And that's why I was trying to challenge each and every one of you to be active in those various fields of whatever went back in my day of the Canadian Wheat Board Challenge, the federal legislation. We saw different cases of improprieties by people within the legal system, and we had to focus on the Canadian Wheat Board. We couldn't deviate to focus on the legal system. Others could, but and that's why I add to that is, and through learning and through being elected, I've learned that there is less accountability out there than you'd ever think. Whether it be your CAO of your county or your school superintendent and or their staffers going forward, there can be insidious things going on by all these unelected, I call them unelected, unaccountable people. And even within our political realm, there's the unelected, the water cooler guards that are out there, putting fear into an elected person that shouldn't be there. So I would encourage you in whatever, Cory's exactly right, about whatever vein whether it be the library or the, having a stop sign in your small community or something like that. Go to your MLA if it's a provincial thing. Go to your MP. Lots of times, and don't just necessarily send them a letter. Go there in person, and get you don't have to get totally in their face, but show them that you're serious and meaningful and coherent about your needs and demands. That's very important.
Thanks, Rick.
Betsy Mustard from Calgary. I want to question the rights that we have regarding the imminently arriving or already arrived data centers that are coming everywhere. I worked in Sweden years and years ago, and they were trying to decide whether to have nuclear power or not. They spent a full year educating everybody, having conversations, bringing it to the schools, to the legislature, to the people everywhere, all different meetings, and then they voted. These data centers are being imposed without any information, and I was just at a meeting at High River, what's the name of the thing? Say it again. National Citizens Inquiry, and the last speaker was one of the people that organized this, a farmer from Saskatchewan, very educated man, John Raff, and he spoke about all the bad things that could happen within 100 miles of the data centers. It wrecks the water, the earth, the animals, the people. That I could go on, but I won't bother. But the point is, we haven't been educated, we've had no vote, and these things are not good for us.
I was reading recently that those data centers have received a waiver from Environment Alberta for their construction. I just drove through Olds today, where there's supposed to be one of those devices being installed too. It's greatly controversial. And in some cases, only history will prove whether those long-term developments are negative or positive. But your point is well taken about proper public engagement, or when the government goes and gives a waiver on it, right, without ever even consulting with anyone, right away your spidey senses should go up as to say like what. And so to that end, I can only say is get in the face of your MLA and find out like who did that. At the NCEI thing there too, I was quite taken aback by the lady talking about Bill C2 or 22, or no, it's the Alberta Bill 22. And under President Ag Minister Tara Sawyer, I was flabbergasted that, and whether she was the one that tabled it or was, she was in the chair at the time, to allow that ongoing legislation to be brought forward. And the insidious part of that whole thing is, as she was saying, is that there is regulation that's allowed to be created beyond that, that is not voted on by, by those in the chamber. And the regulations are sometimes horrible, really, and they hide or, underneath the legislation.
Hello? Yeah. I'm going to be a little contrary. These are a big growing industry, and they are springing up all over, and we do have to take care if you're going that fast with something new. But some people are also pulling out a blanket opposition to a development that isn't necessarily all that bad, and there's actually a lot of myth-making starting to go around about these. They're large buildings full of computers, guys. That's all they are. They won't hurt the animals 100 miles away. They won't control the nanobots in your blood. And anybody with a cell phone is using one every day. They're not going away. But if we chase them out of Alberta, they will build them in China. And, yeah, well, no, because your data is still going there. We need data, yes. Why do you need to process that?
She's asking why is the Chinese, they need our data.
Well,
actually,
yeah,
they need more than that.
Why do you want to give it to them? Let's have the data centers here. And the thing is, it's not going away. You might as well be fighting the advent of the car. It's, guys, this is where things are going. We need better controls. In Olds, they shut down the power plant that was going to be going in because there was public engagement. I'm sorry, but there's a bunch of paranoia and baloney going on around about these things. And we got to be a little realistic when we're looking at the development.
If I could add to that too, in the state of Texas, every 5 years, all the legislation is reviewed by the state. So there is some sort of throttling mechanism to that. And hopefully, as it goes forward, the paranoia and the profitability or the positiveness will balance out. And it'll give that period of time for people to revisit their opinions on the legislation relating to those developments. And I think that's sort of a medium that can be achieved for the people to have a chance to reassess their opinions.
So we have next question here with Kent.
Hey, I'm Kent Manning. I'm from Southeast Calgary. So I'm knocking on doors every day for a political candidate of the conservative type. And I wondered if you gentlemen could say what we could say to people that have the Canadian flag on their lawn. They say they're pro, patriotic and everything, and yet they're just anti, to stand up for Alberta and her, to get a better deal for Alberta. What could we do to convince them to get to come on board and voice our opinions to get a better deal for Alberta?
I mean, you're asking about basic campaigning, Kent. I think the first thing to do then is ask them what they're concerned about. Find out what they're concerned about. You don't have to agree with it, as we just had here. It's an open forum and it's a discussion, but asking the question is still important. And sometimes they might actually have a concern that's shared, even if you didn't think it was there, despite the flag and all the other things. And then you can work from that common ground forward.
They're scared about their pensions. It's just idiotic what they're like. It's just they're so can I say brain dead or brainwashed. And Carney's capitalizing on this. He's just eating it right up, man. And by the way, Cory, I would have voted for you in Banff if you had won that nomination for the NDP. I would have voted for you.
Thanks, Kent. I believe we have one more question online. Max, you want to ask that question, or you want to?
Yep, I'm going to ask that question. This is a moral question for anybody who wants to answer. The question is, define indigenous, because it seems to be like all this loophole that was happening with on-trip and all that kind of nonsense is happening under the definition, or perhaps the weaponization of certain groups that claim to be indigenous, but we don't know exactly who are indigenous. I mean, talking with people who are Métis and such. How is there like an actual definition of indigenous people?
So you're asking about how to define indigenous?
I guess that's what Max was asking. Is that online question?
Yeah, when people self-identify, I mean, you start getting all sorts of people identifying as indigenous and going farther down the line and looking for entitlements. The only thing I would say is I'm sick of race-based policy. I'm sick of identity politics, and I don't give a shit if you're indigenous. We're all citizens. Why don't we start there? And we can be proud of our heritage, proud of our culture, proud of our race, but it has nothing to do with policy. And then we don't have to worry about defining who's indigenous or who's not or any of those things. We need to reset the discussion.
Thanks, Cory. I guess technically we have no more question here. I really want to thank each and every one of you for attending tonight and making our event successful. I want to thank our hero, and I really would like you to give a big hand to yourself and to our champions.
And thanks for the 300 people watching online, by the way.
Oh, nice. Some people watching online.
300.
So, 300.
Yes.
That's a great news. So, but the job's not done here tonight. You need to guys go home and try to educate your neighbor, your friend, your lefty brother or your lefty sister, because there's a lot of work need to be done to educate them. God bless each and every one of you, and thank you for being with us tonight. God bless you all.
And I'd like to also come and join us in Edmonton on Saturday. Who's coming? There we go. That's the spirit right there.